Summerhill Cinema 700 here, coming at you with yet another congested interview. uh, I have fucking bad allergies. Anyways, today I'd like to talk about the movie Lucio Fulci's 1982 film Manhattan Baby. Um, and I have it written down here, aka otherwise known as Possessed and Eye of the Evil Dead. So there are a few names for it, but I think it's most famously known as Manhattan Baby. Now, I watched this movie several weeks ago online. Probably even may have been a month now since I watched it. But I actually watched it online. The entire film's available on YouTube, and I'll put that link down below if you want to watch Manhattan Baby. But I'm not sure if it's available on just strict DVD. But basically, if you want to watch it, you can watch it on YouTube or Blue Underground actually recently released a 3-disc limited edition. Well, they released it in October 2016, but 3-disc limited edition, which features the Blu-ray version of the film, the DVD version of the film, and a bonus soundtrack by Fabio Frizzi. Love the Italian names. I'd love to have an Italian name like that, you know. Anyways, I have the plot written down here because it's been a little while since I watched it. I can't remember the entire thing, but I'm going to read you the plot here. And after I read that, I'll give you some details of what I liked about the film, stuff like that. So basically, here's the rundown. On a holiday in Egypt with George and Emily Hacker and Martha Taylor, her archaeologist father, and journalist mother, 10-year-old... Okay, I fucked that up here. On holiday in Egypt with George and Emily Hacker and Martha Taylor, her archaeologist father and journalist mother, 10-year-old Susie Hacker, is approached by a mysterious blind woman who gives her an amulet. Her amulet, whatever the hell it is. Soon after, George is struck blind when he enters a previously explored tomb. So what it doesn't say here is that basically this young girl's in Egypt with her mother and father. Okay, her father's an archaeologist. He's down exploring this tomb, and he's down there, and this bizarre blue light shoots out of the rock, hits him in the eye, and he's like, and he goes blind. Okay, so this bizarre blue light shoots into his eyes, and makes him go blind. Upon their return in New York City, George is informed that the loss of his eyesight will only be temporary. Susie begins to act strangely, and her younger brother Tommy, who stayed behind in New York with the family's au pair, Jamie Lee, so basically their nanny kind of, or babysitter, is also affected by the mysterious amulet. Both Susie and Tommy have gained supernatural access to dimensional doorways. A few days later, George's eyesight returns, and he describes the design on the wall of the tomb he'd enter to a colleague called Willer. So basically, yeah, when they're in Egypt, the little girl, when she gets this amulet, she's stumbled upon by this bizarre dark-skinned lady, kind of like, looks like an Egyptian woman, and her eyes are white, kind of like this, like I could do that, but they're completely white, and she gives her this weird amulet, and there's this really nice soundtrack playing when she gives the little girl this amulet. And I hope I'm not making this sound too confusing. But yeah, and then so they go back to New York, and then they start telling their parents, like, oh, I was on this voyage and stuff. I was going on these voyages, and it's so great, Mommy and Daddy. I went all over. I was in Egypt and stuff. And the little boy starts saying this, but the little boy had never been in Egypt. It was the little girl that was in Egypt. And I hope I'm not making this too confusing, like I said, but basically the two kids, having this amulet has made them go really weird and supernatural, and they're telling their parents that they're going on these journeys in other places, and their parents are like, what the hell are you guys talking about? And then it says, a little while later, Luke Anderson, an eccentric colleague of Emily's, arrives to work with her on her latest story detailing her travels in Egypt. When Luke hears a noise coming from Susie's bedroom, he goes in, only to be sucked into the dimensional portal and find himself transported to the deserts of Egypt, where he later dies from dehydration in the vast arid desert. The hackers think Luke's disappearance is merely a practical joke, but they never learn of his fate, nor find any trace of him. So yeah, this guy comes over, and he's kind of a practical joker, just comes over and stuff, and he goes upstairs. He's like, pulling a trick, trying to hide from the kids. And he ends up getting transported back into the Egyptian desert. Jamie Lee takes the kids out to nearby Central Park, their babysitter, to play, where she takes photos of them. A woman picks up a discarded Polaroid photo taken of Susie. It shows nothing but the amulet against the grassy background. The woman contacts a man called Adrian Marcato with her find. The next day, the woman drops the Polaroid down to Miss Hacker from a window overlooking the pavement. Marcato's name and phone number are written on it. That's creepy, right? Meanwhile, Susie and Tommy, the kids, continue to appear and disappear from their bedrooms on what Tommy calls voyages, like I was saying. Soon, Jamie Lee herself disappears after entering Tommy's room. When Emily asks Tommy if he saw Jamie Lee recently, he tells his mother that Jamie Lee has not come back from her own voyage. That evening, George's collie Willer is fatally bitten by a cobra that magically appears in his office as he is looking over the photo of the amulet that hackers had given him. The photo magically disappears and reappears in Susie's hand as she recovers from a mysterious fit. So she's having these weird convulsions, kind of like The Exorcist. She's freaking out, the little girl. George and Emily track down Marcato to his antique shop. He tells them about the evil symbolism of the amulet and suggests that Susie has absorbed its energy. When George and Emily find the amulet in Susie's bedroom drawer, she appears to them glowing with an unearthly blue light and then faints. Marcato is called to the hacker's apartment to examine Susie, but is possessed by her inner voice crying for help and falls to the ground, bleeding and foaming at the mouth. Marcato regains consciousness and succeeds in linking minds briefly with George, showing him a glimpse into the Eldrick Egypt his children have been visiting. Susie is then taken to a nearby hospital where the physician, Dr. Foster, who is actually played by Lucia Falche, examines her, baffled by her illness. An X-ray taken shows the dark shape of a hooded cobra mark in her chest. While Emily maintains a bedside vigil for the near comatose Susie, Tommy is alone in the apartment. Suddenly, Jamie Lee turns up, bursting through a wall as a reanimated, rotting cadaver, before she drops dead. A strange blue light of negative energy is shown flowing from Tommy, the bedridden Susie, and the dimensional doorways, and channeled into Marcato's home, where he is reciting an ancient Egyptian spell. George goes to see Marcato again, who tells him that he can stop worrying about his children. With the spell, Marcato has channeled the evil energy away from George's children, and the curse is now on him. Marcato gives George the amulet and tells him to discard it so the curse will not affect anyone else. That night, Marcato is killed at his shop when the reanimated carcasses of his stuffed birds come to life and tear him to pieces. That's a pretty interesting scene. That's the only really gory scene in this film. At the hospital, a healed Susie wakes up with her mother by her bedside. The following morning, George, following Marcato's last suggestion, flings the amulet into the East River, bringing an end to their ordeal. In the final scene, back in Egypt, the mystical blind woman once again appears and gives the same amulet to another young girl, intending to continue the curse for the forces of darkness, bringing it full circle. So basically, I know that was kind of long. I read the whole plot there. In short form, a young girl, her mother and father, go to Egypt. The father goes down into a cave, gets blasted by a blue light, and becomes blind. They go back to New York. Oh, and then, the little girl receives that amulet, too, from a weird, strange woman in Egypt. Then they all go back to New York. Strange things starts happening. People start disappearing. Kids start talking about going on magical voyages. The young girl, Susie, goes kind of like possessed and stuff, and it's just trying to get this curse out of her. And then, basically, that doctor takes the curse inside of him, and these frickin' birds come alive and peck him to death, like, okay, that's not a very good bird, but they basically peck him to death, and, it's not a fantastic movie at all, but the thing that is good in this movie is the cinematography. The cinematography in this film is fantastic. Like, at the start, when you see the Egypt filming locations, when it's filmed in Egypt, the scenes of Egypt are just really good, and they were filmed in Egypt, in actual Egypt, and that's really good. The soundtrack is also very good by Fabio Frizzi, and hopefully I made that made sense. that's the stuff I like. I like the soundtrack and I like the cinematography in this film. I think it's worth it to watch it for that. I don't know if it's worth buying the expensive Blu-ray DVD CD combo pack, but yeah, not a very gory Fulci film. The only gory part really is the end where the birds are attacking the guy and they're ripping pieces out of his face and stuff like that. But for a Fulci film, I kind of like it actually because I'm not a big fan of like House by a Cemetery and New York Ripper and those really gross movies. But the young boy who plays the girl's little brother in the movie is the same boy who was in House by the Cemetery. So yeah, Manhattan Baby, interesting film, not super gory, just kind of bizarre, not a ton going on, but I think it's worth a watch, and I'll leave it down in the link so you guys can watch it. And if you do end up watching it, just let me know what you think about it. Yeah, so thanks for watching. Have a nice day. I think we covered everything, so yeah, bye.